Hey guys, it's Tyler here, and today we're gonna just talk about a little bit about planning and why it's important. We're also gonna go over a diagram that I did. Well, not that I did, but that um, me and my group, that we did it for the final project of the website that we made. We're gonna go over that diagram just to kind of show you guys like how we did it, what we thought of, how our plans did change just due to time constraints and everything. But first, let's go over planning and why it's important. So, planning helps big time when you're coding. It should give you a sense of direction to go for just whatever you want to design. If you want to design a game, application, just or even just something as simple as a little like Python code. So just anything like that, it should be it just gives you a place to start. And a great thing to do when planning is to ask questions. What variables do I need? What is the purpose of my code? What are the decisions that my code needs to make? Are all just examples of things you should and need to be asking when you're planning. If you don't ask yourself any questions, then you might want to start doing that first. And your plan should also be something that you follow closely, but not too closely, as you should always expect your plans to change because you might think of something new. You might be coding and be like, "Oh, hey, actually, putting this in there sounds like a pretty good idea. I'm gonna do that instead of doing this." So always expect your plans to change when you are planning. So why is planning important? As I said, it is the sole purpose of being your guide to help you create your code however you want. Things will change depending on when you start developing, and how you develop is also completely up to you. There really are no limitations when it comes to coding on your own, because it is literally the blank screen and all the variables and everything is basically your playground, your sandbox. You can make whatever you want. That like when you are coding on your own, you are literally taking something and making it, or taking nothing and making it into something. So you have no limitations when it comes to code, unless you're at like a job or something like that, and they have something that they specifically want you to do, then that's really your only limitation. But in the real reality is there really is no limitations. Does planning ever end? I mean, yes and no. The true reality is that it never really does end because of things you could think of and things you could add. Like you really might want to like add this in here, or you might want to take something out completely. You may be like, you know what, this never actually really worked out for this program. But also, you might think this wouldn't work out for this program, but it might work for this program. So you take it out of the program you're developing right now, and you put it into something that you develop in the future because you think, okay, well, this doesn't work here, but it can work here. So, like I said, if it never really does end, you always are planning, and the only way it ends is if you're completely done. If you say, you know what, this project is done, I've done all I can, it works, it functions as I want it to, then you're done. You developed your code, it runs perfectly fine, and you've planned it all out. So, you are done planning and you're done coding. If you haven't developed your app yet, if you're still in developing or you haven't even started developing it, then you're still planning. Because, like I said, if you're developing it, you're constantly thinking. You should constantly be thinking about different things you could do, things you could ask yourself. Like, if something's not working, okay, why is it not working? Is this in the wrong place? Is this in the right place? Just constantly ask yourself that question. And flowcharts are a great way to plan for coding. They're easy to read and they're easy to follow. I've used flowcharts myself. In my beginning days of coding, I've used flowcharts so many times. I've read through them. They're easy to follow and they're very easy to use. And there are other diagrams that are good too, like ER diagrams, that you probably won't ever get into your guys' class. But if you choose to pursue my degree, you will get into ER diagrams and all that other stuff. And use case diagrams, all those are really good for coding. But the diagram that I'm about to show you is also another one that is good for coding, and it's actually the one that we used to develop the website for Wayward Software, our final project. So let me go into that real quick. Here it is right here. This is the diagram that we made. Now, it looks confusing at first because this is the one and only diagram we made for this, as since we were developing and also due to time constraints, some of these did not actually come to fruition. But when we got down, we got on a call, all three of us that were in this group, and we decided, okay, we were sitting here thinking, what do we need to make first? Well, a website needs a homepage. So that's the first thing we made. And also, when you're planning, it should be basic. Don't think that you're going to have your whole code planned out for you because you're not. Okay? Your diagram is going to be very, very basic, and it should be. So the first thing we said was, okay, well, we need a homepage, obviously, because that's what every website needs. Okay, so we move further down the line and we split it off. And we're like, well, what is something that a homepage on a website has? Well, they have a login and a sign up button. They have those buttons. Okay. So we said, all right, we need to make those. And they also have databases. So we had to make those. We did have one database actually on that website where we could get in and we could see who's logged in and who is not logged in. So we did have that. Um, but as far as other databases, like I said, due to time constraints, those didn't really come to fruition. Things changed as as expected. But we got the sign up pages and the login pages actually working and ready to go. And as you can see down here, create an account page, we did have that. And our original plan was to have that go for the client and for the employees. And we were going to have them have a platform database where they could kind of make their own code. We were going to offer, our original thing was offering code to, offering like coding languages and all that stuff to them so that way they could um, so that way they can build their own program and kind of have fun with it. And we had employee projects and client projects that we were originally planning to. But this right here has actually completely changed. We are not doing this anymore. We're not making a client's project, employee projects, or a platform database at all. We're not making any of this at all because this whole thing has changed to actually just selling them software. That's all it is. So employee projects might still be a thing, but client projects is not a thing at all. But like I said, diagrams are basic, they change, that's all how it is. And all these arrows are showing is the relations that these have. So like the create account page goes to the client and to the employee. Platform database goes to the employee and the client, and then the client has their projects, the employee has their projects. So that's just the basic diagram that we made for our final project. We got on a call one night and we just sat down and did that. Now, let's go into a Python code. I'm sorry, I can't use Visual Studio Code as it's just not something I'm very familiar with, and it'd be easier for me to explain something if I showed it to you with Python, that because that's a language I'm very familiar with. Let's go ahead and let's jump into a case study Python program that I did, and we'll kind of walk through this step by step, and we'll talk about how I might have planned this out. So, as you can see, this is a pretty old program. It's way back in August of this year um, for my Python class. But the program decides whether or not the student has made the dean's list or honor roll. Okay, so it takes the last name and it get it take it, I can't speak. Sorry. This variable of last name makes takes the user's input of any last name. Now, this uses a while loop. Y'all have not gone through this yet, as far as I know. You guys have not gone through a while loop. I'll explain it briefly in the video so y'all are not too confused. It does have an if-else statement. Um, and we'll just like go, like I said, we're gonna go through this step by step and we're gonna think about how I might have planned this out. So, the first thing with anything is what do I want this program to do? Well, I want it to I want it to make decisions on whether the student has made the dean's list or honor roll. Okay, so I know what I want my program to do. Okay, so how do I go about doing that? How do I know who made the dean's list or who made the honor roll? Well, I have to know people's names, so I have to have a variable called last name and a variable called first name to even start with who made the honor roll or the dean's list. And also, I would need to know their GPA. Because if you don't know their GPA, then you're not going to know if they're even on the honor roll or on the dean's list. Um that's just not possible. And the second thing I need to know is, okay, well, which GPA is considered at honor roll and what GPA is considered the dean's list. So that's where these if statements kind of come into fruition. They decide, okay, if it's this GPA, then they made the dean's list. If it is this GPA, then they made the honor roll. So it's just that kind of thing. And second of all, there's not going to just be one person. There's going to be multiple people. So I'm going to need to have some sort of loop to keep going through the program so that way we can add more people to this honor roll list. And that's another thing that's kind of down here. These little brackets down here or curly braces represent a list. You guys would notice the backslash in to create a new line for enter student's last name. And you can see that last name makes a reappearance. It's up here and down here. So, so first, what this does is it checks the last name and it checks if this is entered. So another thing I need to do is make sure that when I'm done adding people to the dean's list or to the honor roll list, once this program is done finished, I need to have an exit plan because there's a loop now. So I have to have an exit plan for the loop. And that's where this ZZZ kind of comes into play, as that's just an exit plan. So that's how you kind of go about planning. You're thinking, okay, so what do I need to make the code function? What do I want it to do? What variables do I need to make the code run? Do I need any sort of loops? Do I need any sort of statements? Do I need a decision? That's how you go about planning. I hope this brings a little more in light of how to plan. And if not, when I'm back on Friday, do feel free to ask questions. Um, Tuesday I will not be there because I have a final to study for all week. But Tuesday I will not be in there. So when I'm back Friday, may feel free to ask me any questions about planning if this video did not clear anything up, but I hope it did. So all right, I will see you guys Friday.